What's going on, my people, my people? How are you doing? Welcome to another episode of Through a Culture Lens. I'm your host, Michael Anthony, and of course, I'm here with the smart, the accomplished, the mother, Amber Gray. How are you doing today, girl?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, this weather's been a little, not working with us that much.
A little iffy.
Yeah. You know, usually we're used to like that nice warmer weather that's been coming in.
That's right.
So it's a little bit of a change of pace, but spring is right around the corner.
It's definitely here. We're getting the showers for sure.
Yes, and of course, welcome to our guests. Of course, you guys are the third host of this show, so of course we
That's
would
right.
love to get that feedback from you guys. Thank you for coming in. Please remember to hit that thumbs up, the subscribe notification bell, so then of course when we go live, you guys are ready to go.
That's right.
All right. Anything you got, Amber? Anything new?
Nothing. Just got some interesting show for you guys today. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. We'll be probably making this a 3-parter.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Trying to see how it works out. So yeah. Not trying to keep y'all here till midnight tonight.
Correct. Yes, we're going to try a little bit of a different format, and then hopefully we can go ahead and keep the party going. So we're trying to break it up into 3 different segments. And of course, as you can see, what we have and what we're talking about today is the Nielsen Diversity Report. And we started doing some research because back in December 2020, and then even as recently as February 2021, Nielsen has come up with these reports about African American media consumption. And how to market to African Americans. And so we just wanted to take this data and go through it with the culture lens.
Yeah, we're just going to look at it. It's very interesting. We hope you guys find it interesting because it's kind of some shocking stuff you'll see once we get deep into it.
Absolutely. But of course, we have to start every episode with industry news.
That's right.
And the latest news that's come about is Aretha Franklin's movie. So she has 2 films that's coming out. One of them is a biopic starring Jennifer Hudson, and then there's a series, Genius, with the girl who played Harriet. I can never pronounce her name.
Cynthia Erivo? Is it Erivo?
Yes, Cynthia Erivo. Yes. So she's playing Aretha Franklin in this biopic series. Well, apparently the Aretha Franklin family did not co-sign on this series, and so they're demanding or asking fans to not watch the show because they weren't a part of it. They were not able to, I guess, give any sort of creative input on it, or I guess factual input. And because Aretha Franklin did give her blessing for Jennifer Hudson to play her in a biopic, then the family sort of all over this. So what is your feelings about this family issue when it comes to content creation?
I understand wanting to preserve the legacy, especially of an icon that's passed, or just a public figure that's passed. Like I get that, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't be like that too. If I had a family member who was an icon, or myself, if I become that, I understand. But as you stated earlier when we were talking about this, there's like this kind of fine line between that creative license and like kind of being able to take the reins and show the full picture of who the person was.
Authenticity,
knowing that
creativity.
Exactly, the authenticity and creativity. And I know that people are people, so they're going to have skeletons in the closet, and I think that's probably what the family is trying to kind of ward against, and not have everything come out. And I think them not being asked to help. This is a National Geographic series, is that correct?
It is correct.
So this is a National Geographic series. I think they've done a couple different icons of mini series of different people, so this is just right in line with that. So I get it. I get, the kind of like feeling kind of slighted by not being asked to be a part of it. But I understand the other side, the creativity side of, working with some people that may, some industry people that worked with her, like Clive Davis, and some other people that had this relationship with her, and kind of getting that side of the story. So I don't know. I think I'm probably going to end up watching both, because as we talked about, there's going to be another one coming out that Aretha handpicked Jennifer Hudson to do that version of the story. So I'm going to watch them both. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to watch them both. And of course, I got to say hey to Aisha. She's in the house. Hey, girl.
Hey
baby. So yeah, I'm definitely going to watch them both. I'm intrigued because, of course, as we talked about with Judah and the Black Messiah, when we did that show about how Fred Hampton Jr. and Fred Hampton Jr.'s mother were part of the creation with Shaka King, as far as making sure that they came up with that story, making sure that it's authentic, to his
Right.
story. But of course, they had to once again give some creative licenses, cut some things out, do things like that. With this one, there's two of them, and I'm just really curious of what this National Geographic story is going to, sort of
Same.
uncover. Because, as you had mentioned, with this being an icon, are there some skeletons in the closet, that maybe the family doesn't want out
Right.
there, or are they actually fabricating a certain part of her life that isn't true? And I
That's
guess
true.
that's where we sort of have to look through it through a cultural lens. Look at the Jennifer
Hmm.
Hudson as a standalone film. I'm pretty sure they're going to try to get that on the Oscar track as quick as
Right.
possible,
As quick as possible. Yep.
because everybody knows how the Oscars and Golden Globes and how they love biopics. They love stories
That's
about
right.
real people. So this is definitely one that's going to be up there. And Jennifer Hudson, a former Oscar winner for Best
Yeah.
Actress for Dreamgirls. And so,
Hmm.
and Cynthia Wuzo,
Arrivo.
Revo. So she was nominated last year for Harriet. So we have
That's right.
two very powerhouse actresses that are coming together to play this one icon. So I'm just interested in what they're going to say, and then sort of do the fact check afterwards to see which one got it right or not.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some pushback, obviously, from the family, and then just from fans. They push back on her in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because she is a British actress.
Mm-hmm.
She's just on like a long line of British actors and actresses that are kind of taking over some of our biopics and some
Mm-hmm.
of our American icons.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been people pushing back about that too, because they're like, okay, again, it's like, why is there's no black actresses, American black actresses that could have played the Queen of Soul? I have a hard time believing that, but
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm gonna give it a shot. We'll just take a look when it comes out.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that we just have to wait until we see to happen.
That's
But
it.
definitely industry
Yeah.
news. If you want to follow the family's advice, that is up to you. Or you could just watch it because it's going to be available.
That's
National
right.
Geographic, because they're known for more nature and documentary style. It is going to be interesting to see how they're going to tell the story.
And she's singing throughout the whole movie too, so that should be interesting because she has a really good voice.
Yeah, both of them got really good
Yeah,
voices.
both of them do. That's right.
Exactly. So, moving on to our topic of the day. Nielsen came out with their Representation Matters. They actually have three different uh, reports on African American representation and how it's divided up on screen and how we consume media and different things like that. So just off of first blush, what was your thoughts on these? And of course, we're going to get more deeper into some of the graphics, but just first blush, what did you think about the representation reports?
Well, it's nice. It's nice that they're doing kind of a deeper dive on what African American families, Black families are watching, what we're consuming,
Mm-hmm.
and getting a deeper level of how we're consuming it.
Mm-hmm.
Via cell phone, tablet, television, regular television sets, computers,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. So it was nice to kind of get that deeper dive in our community specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the information was, like I said, which we'll get into, is a little like, oh, okay, that's wouldn't expect that. So, and that's just not even with the Black community. Some of the things that they actually came up with other different communities, I was actually shocked by
Mm-hmm.
too. And again, like this is one of those things that we're not going to go deep into. This kind of like going to kind of showcase this
Mm-hmm.
information.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love for you guys to tell us what you think once you see it,
Mm-hmm.
and this will get kind of deeper, as the shows, as we have more shows about this topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. So then moving on, now of course we need to get into Nielsen first. What is Nielsen? What is their history? Most people know about getting the TV ratings to come into the house so that they can know what people are watching when they're watching. So then advertisers can target them. So
Right.
Nielsen was founded in 1923 by Chicago engineer Arthur C. Nielsen for $45,000. It started as a market survey, and then in 1950 it launched into TV audience measurements. They put this thing in your home, which was called an Audi meter. Correct. That's the correct pronunciation of it. Correct. Audi meter.
I am not sure if that's correct pronunciation or not. We'll just go with
Okay.
that.
Well, if anybody in the chat knows, and also please let us know in the chat if you are or have ever been a Nielsen family. If you
Yeah,
can't
that'd
share
be
that
interesting to know.
information, yeah, or if you've known of some people. I know they try to keep
Right.
the information very private as
Yeah.
far as who are Nielsen family members. But please let us know, chat. We're not going to tell
Right.
anybody. We're not going to tell anybody. And I know, like in 2000, Nielsen launched their weekly internet usage and advertising service as so they nearly 100 because 100 million Americans were going online. By 2003, they were in 10,000 homes. In 2011, they became a publicly traded company. In 2017, they acquired this company called Gracenote, which gathers a lot of metadata out there. If you guys were ever part of the earlier part of Blu-ray discs, whenever you put a Blu-ray in order for you to get some of the content to download there, that was Gracenote that was showing you the album covers and different things like that. So they've been gathering data for a very long time. They worked with Sony, they worked with Samsung, starting out on DVD and Blu-ray players. And now they're just getting other information. And right now they're in 46,000 homes, 46,000 homes as of 2019. And the last report that we saw is that they make around $6 billion a year.
Yeah.
And was there some any information that I happened to leave out?
No, that's it. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, they and I think were they bought by Duns and Bradstreet too?
Yes, they were bought by Duns and Bradstreet too. Yep. The credit sort of company.
Business
credit company. Correct. In order for you to work like a lot of people in this area that we live in Washington D.C., if they want to work with the government, you have to have a Duns and Bradstreet number, almost like your EIN number if you're a business.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're very interesting. They're in many countries, kind of doing the same thing. But the 46,000 homes, that's what we came up. That's not a lot if you think about it.
It feels like a pretty small sample size for them to talk about this data. So, but these are the TV boxes that they have in there. We actually have a video that we can show you guys if it's going to display for me. There we go. So this is actually the, I think, SVP of Nielsen. And of course, this link is in the show notes. And it's him sort of going through this information as far as how they get Nielsen families, how do they collect the data. So it's a very good watch. But
it's a good watch, but it's still pretty secretive still, because it's not a volunteer basis. It's not like, hey, I want to have a box. I remember being a kid, I'm like, I want a Nielsen's box. I didn't know what a Nielsen's box was, but I'd heard about it. And I'm like, I want a Nielsen's box. It's not like something you sign up for. It's pretty random. And they have some sort of criteria, which is still kind of a mystery as to what, qualifies you as a Nielsen family. So that also, when you think about some of the data that we're going to be showing you, think about that too. It's like it's still kind of shrouded in secrecy. So we don't quite know if what the sample size really is and what kind of families are really in this program. So still something to kind of like, I don't know.
It is. Yeah. Please let us know. Did you guys ever know any African Americans or Black people that had these boxes in their homes? Because we're really trying to figure out, how they're actually be able to collect this data. For 46,000, It doesn't seem like they lot, but they do leverage this information against the census.
That's right.
So that's another survey information in order for them to get us the information that we're seeking.
That's right. Hi, Auntie. Giving a shout out to my auntie.
Hey, Auntie. How you doing, girl? How you doing? All right. So then let's move right along in the show. So this is one of the first things we kind of wanted to show you. This is the key themes of representative content. Yeah. So as you can see, it's broken down into a pie. We have Black men, Black women, Latinas, white women, and other groups that's in there, Asians. And what's that bottom one? For some reason, I can't pull it up. I can't see it. It is, East Asians and Southeast Asians are down at the bottom. And as you can see where it says Black women, the three main themes that we see are emotional, investigation, 3, rivalry, 4, sons, and 5, personal relationships. And for Black men, it is teamwork, investigation, pursuit, discovery, thrilling, and streets.
So when Nielsen did their ratings, when they had their sample size, paired that up with the population and the census information, they found that these groups, these identity groups, tend to watch content that was in these small categories that we're seeing right here. So like you said, Black women like to watch things that have rivalry in it, and the things that have to do with our sons and investigation emotional things and personal relationships. Yeah. So this is kind of an interesting chart because it's pretty narrow. And if you look, just if you kind of like go across when you guys get a chance, like go across and actually look at some of the other areas, like what do white women want to watch or what white women consume? It's things about their husbands and love and friendship and family. You don't see that in the Black group. It's completely opposite. So that is one of the charts I found very interesting, to say the least.
It is, yeah. For and this is once again, and what was the definition as far as why they put this graph out there? Do you remember the representation of it? Like this was what we see whenever we watch television, correct?
Yeah, when they did a keyword search, so they did kind of like, if is this demographic searching for certain items to watch content wise, and that kind of matched up to what their sample size was actually watching. So they found kind of this is what they're searching for, and this is also what our sample size is watching. So Black women are searching for things that have rivalry in it. Black women are searching for things for sons. Black women are searching for things that have to do with personal relationships. Not only are they searching for those things, but they are also, in our sample size, the Black women in our sample size are watching those things. We're tracking that they're watching those things. Mm-hmm. So that goes for all the other identity groups on this chart too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so that sort of gets into another conversation of, well, what does this information look like? You know, how often are we consuming some of this information? So here's a graph here that, of course, once again, you can find on Nielsen, and it's the weekly time spent on device. And these is the index, and of course, Black people that's over the age of 18. And where we consume the most content is TV. Second, you know, of course, live and time shifted TV, but we definitely watch a lot of content on TV, followed by TV connected devices. So whether, you know, that, or TV internet connected devices. So whether that's a phone, a tablet, a computer, then also game consoles is pretty high up there as well, which makes sense because like I have a PlayStation 4. Mm-hmm. So that's my Blu-ray player and that's my internet streamer. So I use it for Netflix, Hulu, everything like that. And also I can play video games on it. So it's like a multifunctional thing. So I think that's where that number comes in.
A lot of people do that. I know a lot of people that do that.
Exactly. And another big thing that's up here is radio, you know, but of course, I'm sorry. And then what comes in fifth is your apps, you know, the apps that we watch, you know, when you click on the Netflix app, as opposed to going to the domain name or any other content that you watch that's app driven. And then what comes after that is actually radio. So there's a lot of Black people that listen to a lot of radio in the car, different things like that, social network video and streaming.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this wasn't shocking. This wasn't shocking to me at all.
Mm-mm. And then here's another graph that sort of talks about, now this is, you know, total population, about how people just in general, how they've been sort of consuming more content, but how different it's looked. How you see at the top, this is Q2 of last year. Obviously, you can see where the growth in that 106 number comes into play as far as TV connected device, where it was less than an hour. Now it's more. So, you know, this is just sort of telling us how we're starting to pull back from the television as a population. So just wanted to look at this from a global standpoint and just see like how people are just consuming more content overall. But then you go to this graph, and then this is actually from Statista, which also gathers all this information. And the black line that's at the top are Black people. And the gray line, which is sort of towards the end, 2016, that's Asian. And then Hispanic Latinos, and then Caucasian white people are the blue line. So just stop right here.
Yeah, so this is one of those charts that I was like, wow. So essentially this chart is saying that we watch and consume more media than anybody. So we're consumers. That's something that we do know. I mean, we've talked about this probably in our, you know, friendship groups, our family groups about, you know, we need to save money and invest instead of, you know, purchasing these handbags and doing this and that. So we are purchasers. We like to buy and consume many things. That's just another conversation that I'd like to have eventually on the show, why we do consume so many things, right? Like, why are we outpacing everybody in streaming and broadcast and watching cable shows and, you know, watching things on our phone? Like, we consume a lot of content. It's just actually staggering to see that. And it's not shocking to me.
And it's been pretty consistent as far as what this data is saying right here. As far as from 2009 all the way to 2019, so a 10-year gap, we have outpaced every other racial group in the United States.
We had a dip in 2019, at least a little bit of a dip.
a smidge. A
smidge of a dip.
A smidge of a dip. And really what that almost tells me is the sort of content that was on television, which we're not going to get too deep into on this show, but on another show, during those time segments, how much were Black people actually on the screen for us? Right. Because as Aunt Lisa just said, she believes that we tend to watch what we live, you know,
I think so.
And if we don't see any sort of Black representation on screen, then we're probably not going to watch. We're still going to watch TV.
Right.
But we're probably not going to watch it as much.
That's right. It has to, at least if we're not, represented in the show based off, there's a whole lot of Black people on that show character wise, then we at least want to see investigative drama shows like it's showed on the list of what we tend to watch. Things about the streets, things that have some kind of, sons and, conflict and rivalry. We at least want to see shows like that, even if they're all white shows or, ensemble cast or whatever. But yeah, as my brother just said, we're consumers and not owners. We need to change that. I agree. We definitely are consumers.
100%. What's going on, Tristan? What's going on, Diamond? Welcome as always. And so, of course, you brought up the sort of content, Nielsen, from January to September. So this is a little bit pre-pandemic, and then the pandemic hit us.
Yes.
As far as how we consume content. So based off of their numbers, this is how it's broken down based off of broadcast and cable. And so broadcast would be your 4 major networks, your Fox, your NBC, your ABC, your CBS channels. And cable would be your TNTs, TBSs, BETs, different things like that. What on this list do you find surprising or shocking? And obviously in the chat, if any of these are your shows, please let us know. If you haven't seen none of these shows, please share.
The only thing that made me shocked was Empire, because I thought Empire had ended a long time ago. Because I have not watched Empire, I'll be honest with you. I watched the very first season and I tapped out. So to see that was top for 2020, I'm like, were they just watching reruns? They were desperate and watching reruns? No, actually, Empire ended last spring, and I had no idea. Their season started during the pandemic and ended during the pandemic. So it was a perfect end of their show, for them to get those high ratings. I think that probably was the most shocking because I just had no idea it was still on, honestly.
I had no idea either. And for me, because I was a consumer of Empire. I liked the drama of it, the soap opera. I thought that Taraji P. Henson was hilarious and wonderful in the show. I'm sorry, even though we talk about this information a lot, we talk about Black content and representation on TV, but sometimes I just like to cut loose a little bit and see some, other type of content.
Okay, so don't judge me about my Real Housewives then, okay? You can't judge me about that anymore.
Touche. Okay, we're gonna pause on there because it's 2 different kinds of things. But
okay,
but Empire, I got out of it because of the whole Jussie Smollett thing, which they're still talking about in the news in Chicago as far as what he did. We will not relitigate that situation on this show, but y'all are familiar. So I kind of checked out after that, and it was probably unfortunate.
Understandably so.
I probably shouldn't have took one incident and applied it to an entire show.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have did that, but I did.
It left a bad taste in, I think, a lot of people's mouths. Whether it was true or not, it just came across as very, very iffy. I don't know what else to say outside of that. It just was very strange.
It was. But for them to see, you think about it, Empire, as you said, the first episode of last season came out March 3rd, 2020. So that was literally like a week and a half prior to lockdown. And then their last episode was April 21st. So when we were all in quarantine with this appointment-based content, people were tuning in to see how they were going to finish the show. And obviously primarily last season should be the most watched because people always want to see what's the conclusion of the show.
That's right.
Masked Singer's up here. And of course they're breaking it down between 18 to 49 and then of course 50 and up. You 50-year-olds, give a shout out, #50 and up. You got 911 up here. You got How to Get Away with Murder, Chicago PD, Grey's Anatomy, The Neighborhood, Chicago Fire, This Is Us. A lot of these shows primarily have pretty diverse casts.
They do. Yeah, they do.
And then you look at cable. Look at 18 to 45. Look at that third one, Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, season 9. It's up there with The Last Dance. Sister series. What is that?
I have no absolute idea what that is.
If anybody knows what Sister series is, please let us know, because
please let us know. No, I have no idea. Is that Tyler Perry? I don't know. I really don't. I know he's got a show called Sisters. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Right. But then it definitely shows a generational gap between what people are watching, because on cable, if you look at the 50 and older African American crowd, they're looking at news.
Yeah.
MSNBC.
Right.
Or The Oval, which is a Tyler Perry show about politics.
That's right.
And then we have House of Pain, which I didn't even know House of Pain was still on either.
Again, I'm like, when I read that, I thought it was syndicated. Once again, I'm like, is Empire and House of Pain syndicated? Because I didn't even know House of Pain had any new episodes at all.
I did not know either. I had no idea. Yeah. But it seemed like on the broadcast, we're sort of around the same. It seems like younger and older, cross-generational content is sort of kind of going over. Once again, older African Americans are watching news. Younger African Americans seem to not be watching as much news as older African Americans.
Right.
And then we have what the streaming shows. So this is what we're streaming. And this was done all the way up until May of last year. So on this.
Okay, so some of this stuff, when it comes to streaming, it's like the Ozark. Like Ozark had its new season around quarantine too.
Correct.
So that gave them a boost again. So I think some of this too was like just timing. Mm-hmm. Quarantine made us all have no choice but to read books and watch streaming shows, basically. So Ozark got a boost outside of it being a fantastic season. Mm-hmm. It came out, during the quarantine.
No, it did. But the thing is, though, it's a gangster movie. I mean, it's a gangster show.
True.
Right? It's a crime.
Non-diverse.
And it's not diverse at all. Mm-mm. But it did show lower class people of another race. It did show.
Yeah, and it had the content that we've talked about in that first graph about wanting to see the streets and see some of that kind of element that that mm-hmm. was in that graph of what Black men like to watch.
You're right. Tiger King obviously made it up there on the list. we consume that only behind The Office and Criminal Minds, which Criminal Minds, as we have discussed before, is sort of like that Murder, She Wrote, that good old Matlock sort of
tried and true, always on at some point somewhere.
CBS knows their audience, and they know how to reel y'all in.
That's
Grey's
right.
Anatomy obviously is up here, and then Love Is Blind, which I believe that's a
dating show.
A dating show, Black Lightning. So we definitely have some representation. So this clearly shows that there is representation that people are starting to watch. Correct? Even though Ozark is that one outlier, right?
Not really. No, I mean Ozark. Let's see.
Family Guy. We have Family Guy.
Blacklist. There's nobody Black on there. Supernatural. No, I don't think there's any people of color in there.
Dad.
And then American Dad. So no, I think again you has no. What I was gonna say is The Office we have the one character, right? And
we have Stanley. We have Stanley and
the Southeast Asian woman too. So. Mm-hmm. So if we can give that diverse, I guess, out of 10 people, we've got the one guy. But like Shameless they've got a couple Black characters. But again, this shows you that even if it's not diverse, we're still watching it. And that just tells you how much we consume, because You doesn't have not one person of color. Nothing on that show. So again, we'll watch something if the content is good if it's good content, is written well, we'll watch it. That just tells you that we're kind of we want to see us, but we will watch something that piques those kind of interests that Nielsen has kind of pointed out for us, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Which brings us to obviously the representation graph that we have.
Yes.
Nielsen just gave us so much. Once again, we're trying to hit all of the broad strokes for you guys. We're not trying to overwhelm anybody, but we just want to have this conversation with you guys. So what this does is this breaking down as far as broadcast, cable, and SVOD, which SVOD stands for subscription video on demand. So that's your Netflix, your HBO Max, your Hulu, your Amazon Prime, different things like that. And what this shows are the platforms that have the share on screen, which is basically how often do we see African Americans on the screen at the same time? How many times we see a white person on the screen at the same time? And of course, they have it down to Black males, Black females, East Asian males, different things like that. And of course, that's over broadcast, which is the major 4, cable, which is your TBS, BETs, things like that, and then the SVOD, which is your Netflix and Hulu. So what about this did you find very intriguing because I know we have talked about this pre-show.
What didn't I find intriguing about this one? What didn't I find intriguing? So what made this one interesting? So just to kind of explain this, and you might be able to explain this a little bit better. So what we're seeing here is based off the population, are shows representing the population, the identity population accurately.
Right.
So they use this term, how do you say it?
Parody.
They use this term parody. So for instance, the very first one on the left says, broadcast shows Southeast Asian males above parity. So the amount of Southeast Asian males that are actually in the population, broadcast actually shows more Southeast Asian males than there are in the population of the United States. So I found that like, wow, I had to go back in my mind, like what shows actually have a lot of Southeast Asian males? I'm actually curious now if they're showing that broadcast actually has a lot of characters of Southeast Asian descent versus the actual population being a relatively small population in the US. So that is really intriguing to me. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. So now we have to go back and kind of see what shows are those, right? So this list kind of is interesting. So if you look specifically at broadcast, so Southeast Asian males, as I've said, second to them is Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander males are shown more on TV than they're represented in the actual US population. That's interesting. That's just a little interesting to me. And then next to that is Black men. So that's just telling you that Black men are actually shown on broadcast television more than they're represented in the US population. And then unfortunately you go all the way down to almost the end, middle end, Black females are shown less.
Underrepresented.
Slightly are not represented on TV as much as we are, our demographic actually is in the population. So this is an interesting chart. What's your takeaway?
Well, first I gotta pause for a minute because the chat is tearing us up. Auntie and Mama is coming after us for us not.
Oh, look at Blacklist. Oh my God, they got this person.
Ooh, they giving us that smoke. Okay, they are giving us that smoke.
Because I have not watched an episode of Blacklist. I gotta be honest.
One episode of Blacklist, but I tell you what, Auntie and Mama is coming with that.
The aunties is hitting us. Okay.
They're like, listen, y'all gonna not talk. There's some Black folks on Blacklist. Y'all gonna know. So we don't watch it. So thank you. That's why you are the third host of the show to correct us. We need y'all. Because we can't watch everything. So appreciate it.
We can't watch everything, guys. Thank you.
So to go back, yes, Blacklist is a diverse show. And there's probably, maybe other than Ozark, all those shows are diverse. So thank you, Aunt Lisa and Mama Diane for for that reminder. Well, this right here, to get back to, the share screen, it is very interesting because like you brought up broadcast and then we look at cable. So if we look at cable, we start seeing an increase in the LGBTQ female ratio. Then of course the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander men are still very high. It's still second. Then you have white men, which are over indexing, then white females, and then Black men and
under indexing.
I'm sorry. And then you start going down, you start seeing Black women once again underrepresented. And then SVOD, which is streaming video on demand, the thing that I was surprised about was the LGBTQ male and female overrepresentation.
Completely shocked.
I just didn't know. I mean, I guess I never gave it any thought, really, that based off of the consensus records that they have of people who identify as LGBTQ versus how much content is produced with LGBT characters sharing the same screen. Not just the one-off. This is all sharing the same screen, like more ensemble sort of pieces. Right. And this is where, Black women actually do gain a little bit. Black males are actually gaining a little bit, but it was just a little shocking to see that. I don't know, so it's just weird. Not weird. No, I'm sorry. So I didn't want to say that. What's interesting to me about this graph is how they spread the representation over the different platforms.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, it was really when I saw that LGBTQ men and women identified that identifies LGBTQ were overrepresented on video on demand. That was like, wow. That again, that's just something that, like you said, it's not something that I put two and two together, that I had really thought about. I had heard people talk about that online, about there is a lot of representation of the LGBTQ community, but I never would have guessed it was kind of to this degree. Like you said, it just wasn't in my radar, I guess. But yeah, I mean, if you go down the list, you see that Black women just kind of bring the focus back.
Mm-hmm.
We just are really not represented on any sort of on any of the platforms, broadcast, cable. We're doing well, okay, in video on demand, meaning we are at least seeing that there are increase in Black female characters on video on demand as opposed to cable and broadcast, but we're still kind of smack dab in the middle in that kind of representation, or towards the bottom in representation. So it's sad that that's still where we're at in 2020.
Correct.
This is 2020 list. Yeah, 2020.
20 list, yeah. And then even moving on to, just Black women specifically, as far as representation, there's a graph that talks about Asian and Pacific Islander females and what their population is. So Pacific, Asian and Pacific Islander females, their population in the United States is 3.3%. And you can see the representation is not, equal to their population. It's a little bit below.
Yeah.
You go over to Black females, broadcast, less than 0.5%. But then in cable, there's like a 5% drop in Black females sharing the screen on these scripted shows, reality TV shows, even across news. So this is all content. This is not genre based in this. This is across total TV, and then in the streaming video or subscription video on demand, or the SVOD, Black women are actually over indexing in that category. So they're showing a lot more on these other channels.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, again, I mean, it's kind of just another graph showing the same stuff, right? But you made a good point. You're like, even though the numbers look completely somewhat on par in the Black female category, you think that they are actually similar comparatively.
I do. I feel like the math sort of evens out a little bit because of the percentage, with Asian and Pacific Island females being 1.1% less of share of screen than their population. Cable, they're about 1% less, and then for SVOD, they're less than 1% less. For Black females, especially in that cable category, they're 5% less.
Yeah.
And even though they make it up some in the SVOD category, but that's only by 2. So it feels like that, African American females, even though they make up 7.4% of the population, may not be getting still as much representation on the screen as other women counter to that.
Yeah.
Which then brings us to, this part of the graph, which is the share of screen in news and weather, which this one was completely shocking to me.
This one was a complete shock because when you live in an area like a mid-Atlantic area or some of the southern states, you see Black women on the news. So to see that they're actually not represented on a kind of U.S. level, it's kind of shocking, and that Black men are actually more represented in the news. That's weird. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Please share with us, because we are in the Washington D.C. area, which used to be known as Chocolate City. Now it's kind of Chocolate Chip City.
Now it's Mocha City or something.
It's Caramel City.
Yeah.
So we see Black female representation on news channels, reporting, sitting behind the desk, reporting live. But we're spoiled. So maybe out in my small town, Richlands, North Carolina, may not be able to see as many African American broadcasters. If Uncle Pete's in here, in New Mexico, may not have as many. I know in California, maybe, so please let us know if you guys do see any representation of African American women where you live at. But from what Nielsen is saying, Black women are less than 1% of having representation on news and weather.
And maybe my Aunt Lisa and my brother and sister-in-law can tell me. I remember growing up in the Bay Area, I remember seeing Black men on the news, but I don't quite remember Black women. But so maybe you guys can chime in if you remember seeing Black women. But yeah, because there's so many out here, it's just kind of shocking that it's this low of a percentage of representation. So this was another, we're not really on the news either. Jeez, where are we? Where the heck are we?
Oh, and Auntie put in the chat, representation is growing even through commercials, written advertisements, TV shows, and movies.
It's growing.
Yeah.
It's growing.
And it looked like Auntie and my mama, they getting along. That's good.
They're gonna have lunch, virtual lunch.
Exactly. See, we bond in here. We bring
people together, guys.
We bring people together. And moving on to the next one, this one is the inclusion graph. So when Amber earlier was talking about parity, The purple line is the parity. So that would be the population in the United States versus the representation on screen. Now, this is just black male and female. And the light blue is the black males, dark blue is black females. From adventure, comedies, dramas, LGBTQ representation, news and weather.
It's overabundant.
Black men, it's our day, I guess. I guess
yeah.
Black men are starting to be shown way more than our population numbers actually show, where black women are actually further behind, except for in the reality TV realm.
Okay, so Tristan said Dallas is a good number of black women on the news there. Okay, so that's good to know. So guys, so this particular graph is also strange too. I mean, it's just kind of like, that emoji with the explosion. So that blue box is black men, that kind of darker blue, purplish is black women. So action adventure, that's not shocking, right? Black men kind of dominating action adventure. Anthony you got Mackie. Dwayne Martin, if we really claim it, I'm not sure if he fits in that or Pacific Islander, The Rock. I'm not really sure. I don't know where he put himself. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have action adventure, so of course, and then comedy, of course, right?
Kevin Hart.
Drama. Yep. Yeah, drama. So black men are basically leading and kicking our butts in all of these areas. And then LGBTQ, black men are almost off the chart in the LGBTQ representation on screen. So that's interesting. News and weather, we're completely on opposite ends on that. We're just not even at parity at all. And reality TV, this one was shocking because I thought black men would be kind of closer to black women on that, because all these shows basically have a good number of both, but I do see us more black women, but I would have thought that black men would have been actually on the other side of that.
Right. But I can see this like on the cooking shows, on the American Housewives shows, the guest stars on the Kardashian shows.
Yeah.
Those two black twins. Like I think that's where the black girlfriend comes into play for a lot of these shows.
Yeah.
That's what I believe is going on. And then this one is a little bit more of an in-depth chart. This one talks about inclusion of genre of people of color, women, and LGBTQ. And another graph just to sort of highlight that LGBTQ, once again, there's nothing that we're saying against the representation. That is not what we're here for. We're just showing the data that they're showing, and they're showing that the LGBTQ community is over-indexing on these genres over women and people of color.
And this particular graph was a little confusing to me, so I'm just going to assume that when they separated the LGBTQ population out of the female and people of color, this one just still is like not clear to me when I see this, because of course if you're LGBTQ you can be a female, and of course if you're an LGBT you can be a person of color. Right. So I don't really know how to read this one as much as the others.
And then we have our black share of screen, which is population. African Americans, we are 14% of the population. In broadcast, I'm 14%. What did I say?
Yeah, but I said so they say. I have
so they touche. Broadcast, we're over indexing at 24.7%, but as we showed in the previous graph, that's mainly black men. On cable, even though black men are being shown more in cable, as a population, we're under indexing. And then for streaming video on demand, or subscription video on demand, we're actually over indexing by almost 20%. But of course, this is all based off of black men's representation over black women's representation.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of break it down, this is a graph that they did in 2017. And this was total black women over the age of 18 and what devices that they used in order to watch. And this is sort of similar to the other one that we did, but just wanted to show it again. This is what I showed last week about that. Once again, black women watch more content than total women, period. So we're consuming more, but then the representation isn't there. So once again, just trying to restart this conversation on
this conversation. We're consuming more. We are not represented in any category except for maybe reality TV, really, from that second graph, however many graphs ago.
This one right here.
Yep. Yeah.
This one right here, right?
No, I mean the one that had like the black men and black women, and had a, you know, black men were like being overrepresented. We were all on the other, way on the other side of underrepresentation, with the parody in the middle. That one.
This one? Oh, hold on.
No, not that one. Was that it?
This
is that it right there? Yep, that one.
This one.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah, so we're doing all the consuming, but we're consuming things that don't look like us. We're just accepting, you know, Ozark. I mean, like I love Ozark, but like I said, we're kind of just watching these shows based off of the content and things that we relate to, but we might not have the representation there, you know, on the screen that we're actually the shows that we're watching. So that's kind of sad.
Right, and that sort of brings us back to sort of a question that we like to pose to you guys. You know, is do you believe these themes as far as what black women and black men sort of watch? You know, are black women gravitated to themes that are about rivalry and that are about their sons, which the sons thing, I can sort of see that because of the Black Lives Matter movement and the increase of black women watching content about their children and making sure that they are safe. In personal relationships, I think that would be like families, friendships, different things like that. Emotional, which emotion is such a broad.
Well, and the personal relationship thing is not necessarily family, because they have a family category that we didn't track in, right?
That is true. That is true. That
so.
Is true. It could just be friendships. I don't know. Like this graph right here, I think this was the one that really caught our eye the most. That we really wanted to have the conversations with you guys about. Is there anything on here that you guys are finding interesting, or do you guys have any questions for us at all? Please put it in the chat.
Please let us know. Yeah, because this is something that, like, you know, when we were going through this, we were, you know, kind of having this, again, we've had this conversation before on the show, this chicken or egg conversation. Like, are we driving these type of shows that have the rivalry, that have talk about our sons, that have these personal relationships in them, or are we just being kind of given this information and this content for other reasons? So it's like a deeper conversation as to what even you guys think. Do you think this looks accurate to your viewing? Do you view shows that are investigative and have rivalries in them? And then for the men, like, do you view shows that about the streets and what is it, like partnership? I'm trying to think of all the ones that are up there. I don't have it up on my screen. It's too small for you. Here we go. Yeah. Pursuit. I wonder what Pursuit, what is that, like a reality competition show? Like what would Pursuit be, I wonder?
I'm assuming that this is meaning like pursuit of a goal, like sports related, maybe getting money related.
Yeah.
Trying to be above, trying to maybe pursue out of the ghetto or something like that.
Right.
You know, once again, this is one of the situations where we definitely want to bring in some other people to kind of help us dissect these very general words, which is something that we're working on. So please stay tuned with us. But pursuit, I would think, is pursuit of something other than what it is that you're used to right now. And it does feel with certain African-American shows, there is this pursuit to do better. This pursuit to get out of whatever situation or to heighten the situation that you're in right now.
Okay, well, that's an interesting genre or category, because I don't see that represented in anybody else's. So that's actually interesting that that's what black men are consuming. Yeah, that's really interesting. And the emotional thing, I'm gonna have to say that's probably like maybe the Tyler Perry shows, maybe like kind of that, you know, they have melodrama for Latino women, which is of course interesting because they do watch, well, there's a lot of those shows. If you go to telenovelas, you see those shows that are very dramatic. But maybe on the black female spectrum, it's the emotional shows, the sister show that we haven't seen, or like some of those shows that Tyler Perry does produce, or the shows on OWN or something.
Well, you are a reality TV show watcher. Does the
some
I'm not gonna put you in the full box, but just a little
right
bit. Are these shows, like, which one would these bubbles sort of go with the most? Is it the rivalry? Is it the emotional standpoint? Is the personal relationship?
I think the rivalry thing is 100% a reality TV. I don't watch Love and Hip Hop or things like that, but that's definitely, even if you just watch 4 minutes of it, you'll see that aspect of it. Which to me is, I think that's the one thing that kind of like, it's a little icky. Rivalry is a little icky to me because I don't see that again represented in any other person's category. So that kind of depicts this kind of like um, stereotype of Black women pit against each other, right? Like kind of not working together and like adversarial, basically. But I would say that a lot of those reality shows do have that aspect. Even the Real Housewives, that's the one I do watch. I do think that that aspect is definitely present in the ones that even I've watched, which are literally like 5 reality shows. So yeah, I'd have to say that that's definitely in there. The investigation, that makes sense to me because I know a lot of Black women, for what is it called? It's like a TV One show. It's like for My Man or something. They've got all these kind of shows that are depicting, unfortunately, real life drama / murder / thievery, robbing. And those shows are kind of more to the different types of shows like that. Like a lot of the shows like Snapped and that kind of thing. And I do know a lot of women will watch those shows pretty exclusively. So I can see that being a heavily frequented genre for Black women. Another one I'm actually like shocked that nobody else watches. I thought that was like, especially because I listen to some podcasts that are white women that are like crime junkies and some of these like shows that are specifically about investigation, and it's a genre that I actually thought was dominated by white women, to be honest with you. So I'm shocked that that's a genre that Black women tend to gravitate towards.
And of course, in the show right now, this is just a list of different Black shows that have been out for the past 5 years that I have up here, just sort of rotating, and it feels like as we're watching this sort of has a theme.
Yeah.
It feels like the rivalry is baked into a lot of this content. A lot of dramatic things, a lot of investigation kind of things, a lot of thrilling streets related sort of things.
Yeah.
And it feels like this is the majority of the content that people are watching. Please let us know if this is not, but it does feel like it, like here we go with Power. Number 1 show. Who here like Power, for one thing? Who here like Power? Please get.
Did y'all watch Power? Yeah, I'd love to know.
Would love to know.
I watched it. I watched Power. I was done by the 3rd season and felt like I needed to keep going just to finish it. But I watched it, and it definitely had those elements, right? Streets, obviously. Pursuit.
Rivalry.
Thrilling. Sun specifically, because that spinoff is all about the sun, right? Which I haven't watched a second of that at all.
Had one frame.
And then with the Angela, and I don't recall her name, his wife. That's the rivalry aspect.
Even the person.
So it had everything
between Tasha and Lala, who was Carmelo
That's
Anthony's
right.
wife.
That's right.
And even Ghost and Tommy's relationship. But investigation, streets, discovery, pursuit, teamwork. It looked like Power looked at this and said, we're like 50 Cent was like, we definitely have to do a show that hits all of these markers.
Which is what Nielsen actually wants, right? That's the whole point of this what is it? Minority Initiative. What's it called again? Inclusion Report.
Report, yes.
Yeah. So their whole point is to create or collect and analyze this data. So content creators and these networks can kind of curate essentially the type of programming that they believe the population wants. So we're having this discussion because, the last slide showing what we watch that Nielsen has come up with based off of their algorithms and their data that they put together, the population size and the keywords that they found that we search for. These are what we look for in shows. So if you're sick of watching Black content that is streets related, that is rivalry related, that is overly emotional, or whatever thing that you might kind of be tired of seeing as like a continuum. Well, this is how programming starts. Like so you saying that 50 Cent probably plucked some of that data and created Power probably isn't far-fetched, right? It's like content creators are seeing this data, taking it as gospel in a way, and creating these shows based off what they think we want. So anything to add to that?
So basically what I feel like you're saying, and what I definitely agree with, is the responsibility of the audience, which is you guys. Thank you once again for watching the show. Give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, notification bell.
And share.
And share.
Like and share. Please.
But the content that you consume does have an effect on how the production companies, the broadcasters, the streaming companies are going to make more content, specifically in those genres. So, if you are watching, as you just said, more crime dramas that have black lead characters, then that's why you're going to see a swath of new content that is black led. After 12 Years a Slave came out, black people watched that, of course, we cried through it. But then all of a sudden, there was a swath of slavery movies.
Yep.
Whenever there's one popular, like The Wire, or Power, or Empire, or any of these drug related, if they shoot up to number one, then you start seeing shows like Snowfall and these other content. So, really, the responsibility is in your hands, you know.
Well, and it is, but it's also hard to say that because again, if everything is based off of this particular company, which is now kind of a conglomerate, Nielsen, and they're using just a really small sample size to drive all of the content.
Good point.
How do we, as consumers of content who are not asked to be Nielsen families, how do we even help change the scope of what we're watching? How do we change the narrative of some of these shows? So that's another broader question that hopefully we can ask next week with somebody who actually does this kind of research.
Yes.
So yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah. So this is what they think based off of that small sample size, because if they're doing their research correctly, out of the 46,000 people, then at least 14% of them have to be African American, correct?
Right.
So then whatever that 14% of those 46,000.
We're hoping, right? That's something that we're hoping because we don't know that data, but yes.
We do not know that data. So as we're saying this, we do want you guys to take this information with a grain of salt. Nielsen is a respected corporation. Really haven't been interrogated that much, but we do want to preface that we are researchers and this is only one source of information. We definitely go out and try and find as much information as we can. So this one is just what they're saying, but do you agree with it?
Basically. Yeah, that's all that's what we're saying. So hopefully we can have a deeper conversation next week.
Absolutely.
We wanted to give you guys kind of what we found and what we were shocked by. And maybe you guys are shocked by it. And please write in the notes, comment section, let us know what is striking to you. What is something you already knew or something that you found out that you had even thought about, you know, or if you even trust it. Like, do you trust this data? Do you think this data is accurate? All that stuff.
Nah, I'm with you on that. So is there anything in the chat that we want to give a shout out before we sign out? We're going to go ahead and give y'all some time back. We're trying to reach our 1 hour goal.
Yes, which we're at.
So we will go ahead and start wrapping it up a little bit. But is there anybody?
Oh, Fargo. Chat? Yeah, Auntie mentioned, has anybody watched Fargo? I've been wanting to watch that because I love the movie Fargo.
Oh, with Chris Rock. He is leading. He is the lead because this is their third season, I believe.
I think so. And I what do you know what network that's on?
FX.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to get onto that, Auntie, because I actually love. I've loved Fargo. You know, the movie. So hopefully it's something as quirky and strange as that was.
And Auntie also talked about how they were asking about Nielsen people and they had never had a vote. Is that what, you know, she thought as a kid, which is a big thing for me too. When you think about these pollings and these surveys that are out there that says, oh, how do these people feel and how African Americans feel? I've never got polled for anything. Have you ever been? You've been polled. You never been polled?
Not that I can think of. I know we talked about this. I remember we talked about this a few months ago and I thought I had, but I couldn't really recall if I really had. I'm like, maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I don't really think I have. Like in a real poll, not like some random Twitter poll. No, I don't think so.
Right. For like the Gallup poll.
I don't think so.
So, you know, definitely, once again, taking this information with a grain of salt. Yeah. Diane Williams, my mama, she says Carol Simpson was the first Black woman to anchor the news for a major network. Gotta look that up.
Good information.
Yeah.
My brother brought up Black Geek. Black Geek is very, very on the streets side, Tristan, of reality TV. I don't think anybody gets tattooed anymore. They just fight now.
Oh, really? It's not even. It's not the people on the show now.
I know that I've probably watched a handful of that show, and I can't even tell you if these people. It's supposed to be about tattooing. It's like Black business. These Black business owners, one in Chicago, one in New York, and they're supposed to be tattoo artists. I don't think I've seen a tattoo happen. I don't know how long. It's just a bunch of fights and carrying on. So, yeah.
And Mama says, Diane Williams says, growing up in the 70s, I avoided movies that focus on drugs and their importance to the show. Superfly, The Mac, and some other movies gave me my feel of how they portray black men.
Yep.
That is a very true statement. Even though I grew up on that, and I love The Mac. I mean, Goldie was the man. But, I was 13 when I watched the show,
Right.
With my cousins and my cousins' friends, my play cousins.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was like, oh, The Mac, Goldie,
Right.
That's how you get a girl. Never wanted to actually follow in those footsteps, me myself, but you could definitely see where this representation and perception comes into play of if what you see of yourself on television is it reflective back onto who you are as a person. And that bigger question, which one day we will maybe dice through, is, are we being taught how to be black? Art representing life, or is life, representing art? That kind of.
Well, even Nielsen said that in the report. I mean, they've kind of alluded that, representation does kind of persuade people, like persuade behaviors a little bit. So it is kind of necessary to kind of be really selective about what you do ingest, especially if you're impressionable, which means we're talking about under 18-year-olds. As an adult, hopefully you've got that kind of knowledge and insight to know that what you're watching isn't real. But anything before that, you're so impressionable. So I do think there's a level of that, black exploitation, as much as, like you said, as much as I enjoyed it, there's a lot of harm I'm sure that it caused for people that were watching it at a certain age.
Absolutely. And obviously, well, thank you guys for the show. I think this is a good place to wrap up, right? Is there anything else you want to say?
No, but Auntie was saying there wasn't too many black people, so she can't say she recommends Fargo. But I still might give it a peek and see how Chris Rock he's doing on the show, just to see. But all black reality shows tend to consist of arguing and fighting, which is sad. Yeah, that's part of why seeing that key themes and representation slide was like, wow. I mean, if you look at the black men and black women, all of those key representative content that we watch are all the reality kind of negative shows. So that's kind of sad.
Absolutely. And of course, next week we will continue our conversation with part 2. We are looking forward to having a special guest on next week to help us sort of break down some more of this information and continue. So this will be part 1 of a 3-part series that we're putting together. Once again, we're trying to get this information out to you guys as much as possible. Please let us know in the comment section how you felt about the show. Please like, subscribe, and just let us know how you feel about it.
How you feel? Auntie said, make the show longer. Remember, I told you she was going to say, make the show longer. We've been given some feedback to make it a little bit shorter. That's what we've been trying to do today.
Just a touch shorter. I even got the outro music going on right now. So, we definitely want to give you guys your time back. We know how sometimes watching us, we talk about movies. We ain't trying to make a movie every time. So, we want to make these bite-sized and things like that, digestible. So we're trying to do another format, even though we're over an hour right now. So any shout outs, anything you want to say to the people?
Just want to say thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Diamond. Thank you, Auntie Lisa. Thank you, family. Thank you, your family. Thank you, Aisha, everybody. We appreciate you every single week spending time with us.
Every single week. And of course, same place, same black, same bat channel, same bat time, same black channel, same black time.
Whatever you say, boss.
All right, well, love y'all and see y'all next time. All right.
See y'all. Have a good rest of the week.